Hey, what's going on, everyone? So, I've been a guest on a live before, but this is my first time actually hosting a live. And James, good to see you. I'll be actually catching up with my friend today, Radoslav. I met him at the Czech Institute. I think it's been like 3 or 4 years ago already at this point, probably even longer, maybe 5 years ago. So he's been doing a lot of traveling, and I was just kind of interested in catching up with him to see what he's been up to. And he's joining in. Radoslav is here. Chu, let me know if I pronounce your name right. Fischer, good to see you as well. And then Warwick, Lude, and some other guys joined in. Good to see you guys. Sorry if I'm pronouncing your name wrong. Um, I'm always pretty bad at those. So I think I have to wait for, if I'm not mistaken, Radoslav to request a join. Evan, good to see you. To request to join, and then I'll be able to add him, and we'll be able to kind of start and kind of go from there. RJ, good to see you. Hope all is well. Or RG. Forgot what your exact name was, but I see your Instagram here. Radoslav requested to join. View request. Go live with Radoslav. Yes. Let me see. So you should be joining pretty soon. Hope everyone is doing well midweek here. Radoslav,
Yeah,
what is
can
up?
you hear me?
Yes. First time doing a live. So for you guys that don't know, he was trying to explain some quantum physics equation of how to do a face or Instagram live to me before this live, and he's like, "We'll do this, and then we'll go on Zoom, and then I have this other software and these four other softwares, and we'll be able to record it." I'm like, "Dude, that's way over my comprehension level. We'll just go live on Instagram, and then I'll just have my VA try to record it and upload it on the other platforms and stuff of that sort." So I was just telling the people that have jumped in that I haven't literally seen you in like probably 5 years at this point. I think since like HLC three. I think it's been like 5 years, right? I mean, it has to have. Or
2019?
no? Okay,
Well,
so
maybe
not 5 years.
2018 because it's like December. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
it
been a
must have
while
been
now.
2018 because I know it was way before this whole entire COVID thing started, and I think that was in 20 beginning of 2019, if I'm not mistaken already. It's been even a long time since that started. It seems like all the time, like one of my clients says, like all the time, it seems like you have like a lot of um, time in your life, and he referred to it as like toilet paper. It seems like you have a lot, and then one day you look and it's like, oh man, it's all gone, And these years always seem like it's always flying by that way. But it's good to see you, and I was just telling people like, yeah, I just wanted to catch up with you and see what you're up to and what kind of stuff you're learning these days, and we'll just kind of go from there. How are things been with you? I haven't seen you in forever.
Yeah, it's been a crazy ride the past year. I've been just traveling for 8, 9 months. So like Mexico, Southeast Asia, I was just in Egypt and learning a lot about myself. I've been getting into the Tao, studying Lao Tzu. Um, yeah, just going inwards on meditation, Qigong, health practice, along with just sharing that message with as many people as I can. Um, it's very ungrounding to travel a lot. So I'm
Hmm.
looking forward to settling down at some point and putting my roots in. I don't know if you've traveled extensively a lot, but yeah, it's not easy. And like to shift all the
Yeah.
time, you really got to have your health practices in order. So I'm like super thankful. I know like, okay, I feel like shit today. What do I need to do? Like, let's do some push-ups. Let's go to the beach. Let's breathe. So it just reinforces all the good habits and kind of kicks the bad ones in the butt. Otherwise, you just spiral out. So that's what's been my life.
Well, yeah, I actually used to travel way back in the day, but then I got kind of like old after a while, and I'm like, man, walking around with a backpack around India for 4 months isn't easy anymore. Um, but how let's kind of break that down because oftentimes the one thing I actually love traveling, and I would recommend everyone to do it at least one point in their life where you actually leave for extended periods of time, not like a 3 day weekend somewhere. Um, but one thing that I always found it challenging and it was kind of a relief in the beginning to leave like a regimented workout schedule, but then which actually does make you feel nice for like, a week or two, and you're like, oh man, it's nice to not have to wake up in the morning and then eat these meals and then sleep on time, et cetera, et cetera. But then I found always like after like 2 or 3 weeks, then you start feeling like more lethargic. And then if you don't work out even longer than that, then you kind of start, everything starts drooping and then you don't look as good. And you're like, that's depressing as well. And so what are some things that have worked for you? I'd like to shoot some ideas back and forth. Like let's break down in like some countries to be more specific, like Egypt, for example. What are some challenges you ran into there? And what are some things you kind of implemented to kind of at least not fall apart completely while traveling and eating street food in
Not
Egypt and
fall
stuff of that sort?
apart. Um, Morning is the most important thing for me. So like when I get to a new place, it really rattles my feelings and emotions. So I have to set the alarm and it's like, okay, I got to do my 10-minute walk, get my sunlight in the eyes, drink plenty of water. That's really the biggest impact for me. And then eating shitty food isn't so much of a challenge for me. It's more like, where can I even get anything real? So, and not covered in canola oil.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, it's the hardest. It's so, if I can focus on fruits, I try to, because generally they're just fruit, even if it's not organic. Um, and then getting meat, like that's my staple. It's just if I can get chicken somewhere, it's really hard. I don't know what it's like in India, but just Southeast Asia, everything is just drenched in canola oil and soybean oil. You ask them, and there's like the whole language barrier. Yeah, so just the first day you get somewhere, walk around, investigate, and see where you can just buy just the meat. Or so, like usually I'll ask for organ meats too. So
Hmm.
sometimes they have that. It's like, wow, okay, okay, good. And then once you find that place, stick to it. I'm a creature of habit that way. Um, but even if you're not traveling, like that's just smart to do. Like you got your book on the organic farming and getting meat. Just knowing where to source that in your local area, even if you're not traveling, so vital.
Do you rely on like Airbnbs to at least have a kitchen? Because I know I did that in the past and that made a big difference.
I tried to have a kitchen, but most places I looked just didn't have it. And even when I got there and it did have it, it didn't work or it didn't have
Oh,
pans.
nice.
So it's like,
I see.
all
Huh.
right, I spent the extra money and all this effort to find the one place that has it, and like you kind of, it's a sacrifice, is what I'm looking at. Like, all right, I'm getting to do this, and I'm conscious. I know I'm sacrificing something on the back end. When I come back to it, I'll get back into it. I'm very fortunate. I don't drink alcohol or coffee or any of that bullshit, so that's never even a temptation.
Hmm.
But even getting water, like good source water, is difficult when traveling.
Yeah, I found especially like in India, for example, it was like mostly just relying on bottled water and then hoping like it's legit too, because even that is like questionable as well in a lot of places. But I found when traveling, I don't know if there are any, I haven't like traveled extensively in a long time in terms of like multiple months in a row kind of travel. But are there any more like websites, or is Airbnb the main thing to go to if you want like moreover like a full setup with a kitchen and cooking utensils and stuff of that sort?
Yeah, Airbnb is usually what I rock, or Agoda is also a good option, but it's for hotels, and hotels rarely have kitchen. Oh, co-living spaces. So anywhere I go, I Google co-living wherever. So in Mexico, I found like this amazing place. You got a private room, shared kitchen that's just like huge and beautiful. So getting on that is really useful. Co-living spaces. It's a
Yeah.
hack.
I also have you tried a lot of times I find one of the coolest things of traveling is obviously trying the food and not necessarily like cooking at home all the time, which tends to be like a little bit boring. But it does work because if you just cook in the morning, you can be out all day and then cook another big meal at night. You know what I mean? So you don't have to be eating like in the middle of the day and maybe just get some random little snacks here and there. Um, I always try to do the organ thing like you mentioned, but then in a lot of these markets, I'm like, okay, you say this organ is from this animal, but I don't know, you know, who knows where this organ blend can be from. So I just kind of, have you ever tried like although it's not like something I practice consistently, but it is easy to follow like on the road. Have you ever tried more of like a carnivore diet, like on the road at least?
Yeah, I would say I don't follow specific diets, but I do lean heavy towards meats, eggs,
Hmm.
that kind of stuff. Um, on the road, I have to rely on white rice usually because all the Asian countries serve it. And like you said, when you go and buy stuff, so in Mexico, the meat's just laying out there, and like I seen it fall off the stands, and like they'll just pick it up, put it back on, sell it.
Hmm.
It's like, all right, zero hygiene here. And in China or like Southeast Asia, they just leave it out in the sun cooking, not
Hmm.
in a fridge, and you
Like a
buy it.
bunch of flies all over it.
Yeah, like I really got to cook this guy.
That's okay, man. You just gotta cook it thoroughly, and it's all good. It doesn't matter if it's 2 months old. It all looks the same in a curry. You know, that's how I justified it to myself. But actually, surprisingly, never got food poisoning when overseas. And has anything like that ever happened to you?
Yes, I lived in China for 9 months. Like I was training kung fu 8 hours a day. We went out into the city on the weekend, and I had some street meat and got like severe irritable bowel syndrome for years after,
Hmm.
and literally just crippled me like diarrhea every day, constipation, diarrhea, gas, bloating, just not even like for years, man. It was just
Hmm.
severe. I had to heal myself from that. But like I know like a lot of people see us and they see like the physical aspect, but once you start to learn like the emotional, mental, spiritual side and really go down, it's like, what am I not seeing here that's just not visible that I have to go inwards on? That's what really helped me supercharge my healing and my gut and my journey. So on one end, it was really fucking annoying for years to coach people, and like you have 5 clients in a row and you just run to the bathroom in between each one to either have a massive diarrhea or like just air comes out.
Hmm.
But the journey's rewarding once you figure, like once you start to get the knowledge out of the pain.
Well, what are some things you did? That's interesting that it lasted like a whole bunch of years. What are some things you had to do?
Well, so I went to the doctor first. I got a stool sample. They found blood in my stool. I went and got a colonoscopy where they put a camera in and examine. They didn't find anything with the tests, with the examination. They just wanted to give me a medication for like the gas issues and said I'd have IBS for life now.
Hmm.
And so first step was like, I don't accept your treatment and diagnosis. I'm not going to have this for life and I will get rid of it. So fasting, like extended fasting and dry fasting. I know it sounds kind of idiotic when I first heard of it, but basically no food and no water for like 2 days, 2.5 days. That really helped my gut clean itself out. So I did months and months of just prolonged fasting. And then getting rid of the canola oil, the seed oils, the processed sugars. And it helps, but I had a relationship with this girl who was very energetically tuned, and I would get these like stomach pains and attacks even when I didn't eat or ate something that shouldn't have triggered me. And she's like, maybe it's some other energy or something else is going on. And my ego brain was like, no, my life is perfect and there's nothing wrong with me. So there's no
Except
emotions
the
or feelings
fact that I
to be
think there is nothing wrong. That's the only thing that's wrong, usually. I have those battles myself, man.
big ego, and it's like it just doesn't let you see what's really happening because you have to
Hmm.
admit, okay, there's shit wrong with me, and I'm not feeling my emotions and my feelings, and it kind of like she kind of gave me permission to feel it in a sense. And then actually, Michael Holt had
Hmm.
his tribe meeting. They did like a weekend men's retreat. We practiced presence and like going inwards, and that really helped me a lot because I was able to like go with equanimity versus I would always just shout at myself, like, fuck you, stomach. Why are you hurting? This sucks. This is bullshit. All the time, just negative self talk towards my stomach. It's like getting worse. So then you calm it down. It's like, okay, it is what it is. Cool. Oh, this is like relationship stuff coming up, work stuff coming up, old childhood shit coming up. You're like actually able to process it versus just ignoring it and letting it go down. I had no idea what it was. It's like someone going to the gym. It's like, what's a dumbbell? What's a Smith machine? Like, no idea.
Hmm.
Someone's got to show you, and you got to start to feel it out. So that was a big part in shifting my mindset around emotions and feelings.
Yeah, I actually did one of Mike's weekend events too. It was actually like extremely difficult considering you're like not actually doing anything during the event except meditating. I like usually I try to meditate for like 20 minutes after every one of my workouts as a way just to kind of like calm down and relax after the workout. But I usually also do it like laying down. And their technique, I forgot exactly what technique they use. They do it always like sitting up. And just like my back muscles didn't have the endurance. And on top of that, it went from like 20 minutes to like 7 hours a day, you know? And I'm like, oh shit, man, my back was like, I'm like, I can't even meditate because all I could focus on is just my back is on fire, dude. And then eventually, like the second day, I'm like, dude, I just got to lay down. I don't have the endurance. And they said, it's fine. But it was impressive to see like a lot of the guys there, even some like old guys, they're like 65 or even more, it looked like. They're just kind of like just sitting there for like, it was like, you get up, it was like 2 hours of meditation in the morning. Then you did like cold plunge plus sauna plus like some food and snacks for like 2 hours. Then went back for another 2 hour meditation. Then did cold plunge and sauna and then another 2 hours meditation. And it was tough, man. It was tough, but it also reminded me of how normalized being very busy in a Western society is. You know what I mean? Which is like actually like very tough on the central nervous system, really wears your energy systems down, just like wears you down as a whole. I mean, you're looking at the average American these days, they need like basically their mentality is like 5 hours of sleep a night, 7 cups of coffee a day, and then basically needing Xanax just to have enough energy to wash their dishes in the morning or something of that sort. And it's like totally normal. And of course, there are many reasons for that, but I find one of the reasons is just like being on the go 24/7 is very encouraged, you know, like actually sleeping a lot or, you know, God forbid you take like a 30-minute nap during your lunch during work, you know, or something of that sort. Um, so yeah, I forgot the name of his event. It's called Man's Tribe. Do you know the name of Mike's event? Because I would recommend a lot of listeners to check it out.
Yeah, the group is called Tribe, Men's. I don't remember what the actual retreat of it is though, but yeah, it's definitely worth it. Um, have you ever heard of Vipassana?
I think that's what they're doing. That's the meditation they're doing. I'm not too familiar with the myriad of meditations out there, but I think that that is the style they're doing. And for listeners that are interested, you can check it out. It's like Michael Holt, Savage and Saint. I'm sure if you Googled that, you'll be able to find his event. I just forgot the name of the event exactly, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, well, it's like a traditional Vipassana. I think they do 10 days. It's like around the world, 10 hours they have seated meditation, and then 3 of those hours are like you're not allowed to move at all. Very intense. Sounds like you got a small piece of that, but I think to your point, the busy go 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 mentality. That's something I've been enjoying with like reading the Tao, Tao Te Ching, old Chinese philosophy, basically on life, and it really resonates with me because it's not about even when you read like their texts, they're very paradoxical, contradictory. They're not saying actually, do as we say, here's the rules. It's encouraging you to feel for yourself what is real and to basically peel back the layers of what they call the acquired mind. So from birth, you start like a child has no acquired mind. Like everything is allowed, it's real, it's like all connected. And then your parents tell you don't do this, your school says do this, tie your shoes this way, and you start building an acquired mind of who you are, like your ego. And the more you step back out of the busyness of I identify myself as working and doing all these things, and you sit and you meditate for 20 minutes and you remove that identity of Eugene or Rad and start to tap into something deeper. That's kind of what I've been doing the past few months, and it's been really rewarding. It's a shift of what's important in life, what is real in life, and I think a lot of people run on these belief patterns, and a belief is just something that's repeated over and over and over, and then you believe it. So God is real, God is not real. I should eat this, I should eat that. But most people don't connect into their body to see like, okay, am I actually where I need to be right now? Am I feeling okay? And I don't even give themselves that opportunity to feel that. And that was me for a long time. I'm sure you're no stranger, right? It's especially for men, you're not supposed to feel, you're not supposed to cry, you're not supposed to show emotion. And yeah, working down that path it's challenging, but rewarding at the same time. I think as health coaches, if we don't experience health problems and challenges and then work through them, kind
Hmm.
of not teaching from authenticity, and we're just, bro, this should work for you. You can do it. It's like, no, this is what really pulled me out of my shit when I was really
Hmm.
struggling. So I know this works. Paul Chek says it all the time. You gotta live your stuff and whatever you're preaching.
Yeah, and I find like what are some insights you've personally gathered while studying that material, and how has it changed your outlook or how you run your business? Because I know as business owners, you can get oftentimes really caught up into like, well, it's my passion. I could work 7 days a week, you know what I mean, et cetera, et cetera. And then you can get caught up in a lot of that. And I'll kind of share a little bit of what's happened to me like over the years doing that. But I just wanted to get your input on, like what you've learned so far. I'm pretty sure you're going to just keep learning even more stuff and how that's kind of changed your behavior, outlook on motivations, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, a lot of and I'm not gonna be I'm not an expert, so this is just my understanding of what I've read. Is you want to try and go towards wuji, or like non-forcing, non-controlling. It's translated as non-action, but it's more like letting it flow from authenticity. Um, a lot of the time, the book will speak about morals and virtues, and when you try to be virtuous, you're actually being unvirtuous. When you're really like listening to the Tao and being inwards, whatever you do is virtuous. So all these morals, right and wrong, we don't actually know that it's right and wrong, except we're believing in it, and we're doing our actions because we believe in it. I'm going to donate to charity. I'm going to go volunteer because that's what good people do. Versus, what do I feel in this moment? Let's go volunteer. Let's go help someone, just because like that's what's arising right now.
Hmm.
Versus, go to my job, go to my kids. Like even things that you seem as like a good thing may not necessarily be. Or a lot of the times, I know I have a taste of this, but there's people that are very controlling and they want to control the outcome of everything. And because they believe that if they control the outcome of something, it'll be the best possible outcome. When in reality, losing that control and everything is a disaster is the best outcome, because now it leads to an outcome that they weren't aware of. And when you start to see that and connect it, then you can kind of let go of control and needing to have super regimen, things working out your way. The Tao talks a lot about spontaneity and just like letting whatever needs to come out, rather than, again, living by an acquired mind of this is right, this is wrong, this is what I always do. So in terms of business, I have my schedule where it's like, this is what I film, this is how I do, this is when I create. But then there's a sense of, you can relate it to play. Like sometimes I just don't let myself play enough, and that causes me stress. And then the awareness of me not playing enough causes me more stress. And it's like, okay, just chill, breathe. I do my meditation. And it's like, wow, I feel a lot better. This worked.
Well, how's your rough daily schedule look like? Maybe you can give an outline of what's worked for you so far.
This could be a rough schedule because every day for the past 8 months has just been
Where
like, especially the past 4 months,
where are
moving.
you at right now?
Um, I'm at my parents in Bulgaria. So I got here
Okay,
like
cool.
a week ago. I'll stay a little longer and then go somewhere in Europe. I don't know yet.
I'm actually half Bulgarian. My dad's Bulgarian, and
You're
my mom's
hot.
Ukrainian. But
You
back
speak?
then, it was all the USSR. I speak Russian.
Okay.
I speak Russian. I don't even know Ukrainian like as a language. I just speak Russian and then a little bit of English, as you can tell.
Okay. I can tell. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
But that's pretty cool
but yeah,
that
like
you're in
my
Bulgaria.
yeah. My schedule when I can, like everything goes well, because here I'm having to take care of like some paperwork and stuff. But I'll usually get up around 6, do my meditation, like I'll do qigong, so moving practice. Then I'll sit for like 45 to an hour. Then I'll go for a walk, eat some food, work out, and then I'll get to work. So there's like around 9 o'clock. That's about it. Like as long as I get my first few hours, I'm happy. And then whatever real world bullshit tends to come up, I take care of it. Um, yeah, and then just bed by 9:30 most nights.
Got it.
I recommend like studying languages. So right now I read French before going to bed.
Oh, dude.
So I find,
That's sounds treacherous. I struggled with French in high school, although it was like basically when I came here to the US and my mom was like, well, learn English, French, and this other language all at the same time, it should be doable. I dropped it and just went to something a bit easier like Spanish, just because it was a requirement. I did the bare minimum and not even like really interested in learning it. So if
yeah,
anything, I always thought German was like super cool. I never got around
dude,
to
I love
learning it.
German. My favorite language.
I just know how to say "don't shoot" because I think that's like a base requirement in Eastern Europe, in case they come over the borders again.
Don't cheat.
Yeah. Well, I found with workouts, like at least when I was in Japan way back in 2010, like I used P90X, and luckily I just had a park um, with like pull-up bars and all that stuff, like right, okay, bam, right there. And
Fucking healthy
I
eating.
just used his workouts, and I did like weighted backpack pull-ups and push-ups, and honestly, when you're like 200 pounds, everything is already basically almost like a one rep max, So it's like it was already good weight resistance. But I was just doing those like 3 times a week, and I was in Japan for like around 2 months, so not too long. But that really worked. And then the food there was honestly like really high quality. They have a lot of high standards in terms of screening. I mean, sometimes it was like ridiculous. Like a little bag of cherries was like $10. And I'm like, dude, like for 3 cherries, $10. Come on. You know?
Who's
But
buying
I
this?
but I guess that's how much it costs to like screen appropriately so you don't get like all sorts of random whatever you don't even know where you're eating half the time kind of food and stuff of that sort. What have you been doing for your workouts when you're on the go? What have you been doing P90X as well? That kind of style?
No, I, we bought it like 15 years ago. My mom and I used to do it. So I was young. But right now I do like a push pull legs, pretty much all body weight. All I need to do is find a pull up bar. And I'm very fortunate. I train handstands. So literally I can just do an hour of handstand training. I'm trying to get my one arm. Um, so it's not boring. And then, yeah, just working towards handstand push up, planche push up, front splits, middle splits, one arm chin up, keeping it simple. Because usually when you go to the gyms at random places, it's hit or miss. You never know what you're going to get there. So, yeah, I alternate like a hypertrophy month, a strength month,
Hmm.
hypertrophy, strength. And so if I'm doing hypertrophy, I'll eat way more and fast way less. If I'm doing strength, like tighter window, less carbs, kind of thing. I'm noticing that's working really well. So nothing fancy. I can give you specific exercises if you want, but
No, it's up to you. It's always good to exchange ideas. Um, do you ever even try to find like a gym in a local area? Because I know like that tends to be more annoying than usual, especially if you're what are your windows in terms of like when you travel? Like, do you typically stay like in the same city or location, or do you like bounce around pretty quick too? Because if you bounce around pretty quick, that makes it like way more difficult. But if you kind of stay in the same spot for like roughly a week or two before you go to the next spot, it's more reasonable to find like a gym and then just, pay like a day fee or whatever, and then just do like a quick workout. Not that you're going to make any impressive gains or anything, but at least you won't lose like your physique while on the road either.
yeah, it was a lot of bouncing around the past little while. So, like in Egypt, it was 2 weeks of just straight every other day, kind of get up at 4 a.m. and go do a tour or catch a plane or move to a new hotel. Um, so I really have to make my routine very simple, just literally like handstand push-ups, really challenging regular push-ups, uh, challenging chin-ups. It's really hard to do the leg stuff though. That's really annoying without any weights because then I gotta go like just higher reps. Mm. Yeah, I think I saw like one of your setups is you have a library and your gym right there. Like
Library, gym, and office. It's a
fucking
one-stop shop, man.
perfect, dude. I have that in my mind. Like I'm doing something like Eugene when I have a place. Like
Yeah,
just all together.
I mean, that whole entire setup in terms of the gym setup, I think it was a little under 2K. So it's not even like that much. I still do have a gym near here just to kind of mix it up because I work remote too. And then it kind of gets a little boring being like at home all day and then also just working out at home and stuff of that sort. But it's not too pricey. And I mean, the time economics is definitely there. You don't have to drive to the gym. You don't have to wait on equipment. For those people that are like germaphobes, I mean, it's just your germs on the equipment then, if that's your thing. Um, so there are like a lot of benefits. And honestly, you don't need any machines, to begin with, because usually that's the expensive equipment. Like if you want like a leg extension machine, I mean, that could be like $3,000 to $5,000 just to extend the knee, one exercise. But you can get a full set of adjustable Bowflex or power blocks. I would prefer those because they sell those extra attachments. So after you get to like 55 pounds, you can buy like 10-pound attachments. So you don't have to then buy like another whole set of heavier dumbbells and stuff of that sort. And all you need outside of that is just like a pull-up bar, an adjustable bench, maybe not even the bench so it's like really not that much. And then just like a really good written out program, like you're on. And then that's about it. I mean, dude, hunter gatherers, I promise you, they didn't have like a Bally's membership, a personal trainer, a 401k, a health insurance program or whatever. And they're still like super jacked. And if you take out child mortality, they lived into like pretty old age as well, in good health, where today it's like, I could make the argument that most like people's soul dies basically at 30 and their biological body actually dies like at, I would say like 60, although the average American dies around 75 or so. But if you look at their state of health and quality of health, it's just quality of life is just so poor and low. Like oftentimes people are like, I don't know if you see this oftentimes, but they're like, oh, I built like such a good life for me. Like I have like a house and 2 cars and 2 dogs and whatever. And meanwhile, they're like on like 15 pharmaceuticals by the time they're like 50 or 60 and, don't even have any bowel movements. I need an oxygen breathing machine to be able to sleep at night. Don't sleep at night. Are numbed out to the gills with psychiatric medication. I'm like, dude, what kind of quality life are you talking about? I don't know if you've seen that in Western culture. It seems like very, very common, like almost this mentality of like, it's just not kind of popular, incentivized to put your mental or physical health first. You know what I mean? It's like, if you're not dying for your job, you're not doing your job kind of mentality. And I've never been like terribly sick or terribly injured, but I've had episodes of injuries, like a back injury, also had like some gut issues like you. There wasn't like over the top terrible, but even those small hints of lack of health, like I feel dramatically decrease my quality of life already. And they're just like introductions to pain. They're not even like real pain. And people just seem, which goes back to your statement before, just totally not listening to their body's many cries for help. Like if you're chronically tired, oh, the person's like just downs 2 more cups of coffee. That's your body's way of telling you like, dude, you need to rest. You need to take a nap, or maybe you need to decrease your workload or live a more sustainable, go towards your goals in a more sustainable way. If you're having anxiety, I mean, that's your body's way of saying a myriad of things. But in my opinion, it's like you should get to the bottom of those things instead of taking anti-anxiety medications. Like if Jator mentioned, I got this line from Jator Pierre from the Czech Institute as well. He mentioned like, dude, it's very common sense. They're like, yes, it's a harder approach, but it's basically the only way you're going to attain true healing is that like, if you have like a rock stuck inside your shoe, like take the rock out, dude. Stop keeping the rock there and stop keeping the rock there and taking painkillers instead and continue to walk that way. It's like total common sense. It is a harder path because at the end of the day, you got to look at yourself in the mirror and admit that you're causing your own problems as a first step of action, because most of the time, even if like it wasn't your fault, like for example, you ate, that bad meat in China, and then obviously you had gut dysbiosis for a long time. But oftentimes I find like, even if it wasn't the person's fault necessarily, although I can claim it is your fault still because you chose to travel to China, but it isn't their fault necessarily to have that pain. But most of the time they keep themselves in that cycle of pain. You know what I mean? By not taking action, maybe not studying gut health, maybe not hiring like a functional medicine registered dietitian. Like I think Lori Chang, took HLC3 with us as well. She's like amazing. She helped me a lot as well. I'll try to include her contact information in the description as well for anyone that wants like a non-pharmaceutical, drug path to gut healing and actually getting to the root cause of their gut problems. But I find like that's the toughest challenge. Like what what's your take on that? You know, like for people to go like look in the mirror and say like, dude, I am causing my own problems, which I think is powerful because if you're doing it to yourself, well, guess what? You can stop doing it to yourself. And if you need help, dude, reach out and hire a mentor. You know, it's not going to be more expensive than that trip to Europe you just paid for like 2 or 3 weeks. Not you in particular. I'm talking about just in people in general. And you'll probably get way more out of hiring like a very good mentor than you would just going traveling somewhere for 2 weeks, or like the average American spends eight to $16,000 a year on non-essential expenses like alcohol, eating out with coworkers at lunch. I do. That's like usually way more than a good coaching program with most coaches that could transform your mental and physical health a tremendous amount. So you definitely have the money, and most people, not everyone, no absolutes. And I promise you'll get like way more quality uh, for your dollar spending your money that way versus like another trip or all these going out and Ubers and et cetera, et cetera. But I didn't mean to take it away from you, Rad. What's your take
No,
on that?
I think what you're saying is there's an ignorance cost to not knowing what you don't know and what you need to know. So Alex Ramosi, I follow him. He talks about business a lot, and he says,
Mm-hmm.
"What's the ignorance cost of you not knowing how to make $1 million a year?" So how does that impact your life? Like money, cars, house, health. To not know how to make 1 million, but to not know how to take care of your health, what does that really cost you right now? 5 years down the road, 10 years down, 20 years, versus okay, I'm going to pay 2,000, 5,000, whatever, have a coach show me what to do. And now that some perceivable like large amount of money or small amount of money and time, the dividends it pays is just way higher than, let's say I put $5,000 in the S&P 500, and when I'm 100 years old, it's now $10,000. I don't know whatever it would be, versus business or health or digestion or emotional control. How much is that actually worth versus just keeping ignorant about it? And I think part of the problem, like when I train clients, is they'll give me like my doctor said my blood work's perfect and everything's great. And it's like, how the fuck did they, what? Are they looking at you? Like, how is your blood work perfect? And how do you believe that you're in perfect health? You're like 100 pounds overweight, you don't sleep, you drink alcohol, and you have a gambling addiction. They just don't see it. And I'm not surprised, because if your parents didn't see it and their parents didn't see it and no one's taught you to see it, you're not going to see it. Like, the internet can exist and it's like such an amazing tool, but if you're Amish and you've never seen a computer, well, you're missing out on this tool. Same, like the easiest thing to access is YouTube or books like How to Eat, Move, and Be Healthy by Paul Chek. Just these simple tools you and I know, and we can just communicate, like, oh, pull this reference up, boom. It's like the system doesn't want people to know that information. I'm sure I took HLC1, Holistic Lifestyle Coach Level 1, while I was doing my kinesiology degree. And I was like, what the heck? Why isn't this in my kinesiology? Like, none of this is there. It's just anatomy, physiology, biomechanics, all physical layer stuff, but no energetics, no emotions, no why do you get out of bed in the morning, no purpose, no soul to the material, but just did you listen to his episode with Kareem Ibrahim, the founder of biogeometry? Like,
No, I do listen to his podcast though.
the
I
first
actually
10
wanted to
15
listen to another
minutes
episode or two
the
this
first
week.
10
I'll actually check
15
it out.
minutes is amazing of that episode. I can't remember it exactly. It was talking about like left hemisphere, right hemisphere, more masculine, more feminine, and how we're like going into this very young external era where it's just like, what can you physically see versus what can you feel? And again, working with the Tao, it's like, what do you feel and experience versus what do you see and read and think? So it's kind of like a dog that's been trained to shit in a certain corner and eat over there and sit when I say sit. Humans have just been like, hey, do what I say right now. You're bad if you don't. You're good if you do. It's incentives, economics incentives. So the system just incentivizes people to sit in front of a TV, eat cheap, bad food, numb their emotions and pain, and until they have like a role model or someone to see it, or they hit rock bottom. Paul quotes someone about if you have a big enough dream, you don't need a crisis. So that's part of it too, is like people just wake up and they hit the snooze button. And what that's sending is like, okay, I just woke up back to my life and reality. I don't want to engage. I want to hit the snooze and not be in life. So when you wake up, like a lot of people are basically saying no to life. They don't want to engage versus I'm excited about life. I know some parts are going to suck. Some parts will be more fun. But like that first moment your consciousness comes into your body and you wake up and you realize where you are every day. If you wake up to, oh, it's not a surprise that you're kind of manifesting poor health because you almost want to die and finish it because you don't know. And also to what you said before was that when I've been injured, when I've had stomach pain, when like things are really bad, it's like, wow, this is what someone experiences every day.
Yeah,
Like, and
plus like
probably
30 other
worse.
symptoms. Yeah.
It's like, how do people function? And it's like, thank you for showing me this level, like where I'm usually at. I'm gonna have to fight back and come to it, but it gives me more empathy for those people because if I was constantly feeling like that for years, why would I make it? Like, I don't even, I'm helpless at that point. Like, I need someone to give me a hand and just be like, yo, go for a walk in the morning. Okay, I can do that.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, to touch on your point, I think one of the biggest challenges for change, for people actually initiating honest change, like going on an honest journey of health and healing, is that like pathology has been like totally normalized. I would say almost in a lot of places in the world, but in particular, just to focus on like Western cultures, you know, like let's just focus on the US market. I mean, when your client or whoever said, "Oh, look, my blood work looks good," like I guarantee you, it actually doesn't look good. It's BS. And I forgot the name of the study, but I've quoted it many times on other podcasts. But basically, 9 out of 10 American adults right now are metabolically unhealthy. So 90%. So I guarantee you, whoever said their blood work looks fine and they feel fine, it's like it's bullshit. 90%, they're totally wrong. They're just probably very sick inside. And I just feel like it's just the standards have dropped so low in terms of like what healthy actually is these days. Like when I was still doing research for that second book, The Anti-Factory Farm Shopping Guide, I was giving a lot of grocery store tours to introduce people to the material, but also just to learn how to express the material a lot better to the general average crowd. And sometimes you get people walking up to you, they're like 35, you know, 38, and they're like, man, I've been eating this factory farm processed stuff my whole life and I'm completely fine. Meanwhile, they have like huge man boobs, you know, like huge gut, their knees are hurting, they're on like 3 or 4 pharmaceutical drugs. And in their eyes, you know, they might actually be doing fine as compared to their coworkers in the office next to them, which are a complete like train wreck disaster for the most part. Um, Especially in like the fat loss industry, you get a lot of people coming in today like very overweight, and they're like, I just need to lose like 10 pounds. I'm like, no, dude, you need to lose like 40 pounds. You know, just because once again the standards have dropped so low in terms of like what a lean individual actually looks like. Um, like just 10,000 years ago, probably people like me and you, in terms of hunter-gatherer society, would probably be below average, you know, in terms of like functionality and ability to hunt and have a tremendously strong immune system to be able to survive the elements throughout all seasons, et cetera, et cetera. But now the fact that we're like the top 1% is the comical aspect, you know, which shows you like how far like standards have dropped for the most part. And I feel that's like challenging for a lot of people to admit to change, because unfortunately it's been normalized to be like fat, broke, on medical drugs, like seeking medical drugs as actual solutions for health, blaming things on genetics. You know, oh, I can't lose weight even on 0 calories because of my thyroid. Oh, is that so? So let me go drop you off in the forest for a month without anything. And let me go pick you up after a month and let's see how much weight we've lost, although your thyroid is still messed up, probably all of your weight at that point. It's just become kind of like a little silly and comical. I don't know if you have a similar negative perception as I do about the situation.
Uh, Unfortunately, I do. I was thinking about this today
Like,
about
unfortunately, I do. That's good.
about the difference between like normal and average. Like a normal human being 10,000 years ago versus an average human being today. There's a lot of it's kind of sad. I talk to people, they're like, my back's injured or my knee or something, but I'm just gonna live with it. And it's like, why? You've accepted this pain and disability now for the next 40, 50, 60 years. Why? Like that's literally what I'll say. It's like, you don't have to deal with it. like, how do you know I can heal? It's like, do you want to believe the doctor that says you can't, or do you want to believe me that says you can and there's a hope and you will do it? Because it's like Henry Ford says, if you think you can, you can. If you think you can't, you can't. And that was my mentality. Like doctors told me, you're not going to heal your irritable bowel syndrome. It's like, well, I don't really care. I'm going to. Doesn't matter. And I think that attitude is just super important. Like the people that heal are positive about healing. The people that get sicker and worse are negative about healing. It, it's all come down to this. Like if this isn't leading the way on everything else, again, it's programming. If you saw like traveling, I'm seeing so many different. In Mexico, it's like they're a little plumper, but they're not American plump. In Southeast Asia, they're all skinny, but they're all taking down like all these horrible foods, a
Mm-hmm.
lot of oil, like a ridiculous amount of oil. And then when they're 50 or 60, it's like they're hobbling down the streets, barely able to like go up a curb or something. And I'm seeing my parents, like my grandparents and older people, and I'm like, this old person either is doing really well or not, but it kind of like gives me motivation of like, okay, I'm taking care of myself so much better than they are. When I'm their age, I know I'm going to still keep moving. And I get that mentality again that people accept being overweight. Like, what's the responsible level? Like 50 pounds? Okay, my coworkers are all 50 pounds. It's normal. My grandpa died or whatever at 45 from a heart attack. Well, that's probably going to happen to me. Like, they set these beliefs about their future health and then they manifest them versus like I set a belief, I'm going to try and make it to 150. All right, so probably by 125, maybe some stuff will slow down, but by 80, I'll still be kicking ass and doing what I want to do. And if I die, so be it. But like, I want to die on my terms and in a healthy way versus the last 5 years of my life. My family has to take care of me. I have dementia, Alzheimer's, and now I'm putting the responsibility of my health onto them. And if you're worried about legacy or how you're going to be remembered, they're not going to remember you when you're 40. They're going to remember the last few years where you're
Mm-hmm.
just like a pain in the butt for them to, you know. So it's like I'm not married or anything, but I imagine when couples are married and they let themselves go and they look at their partner and it's like, they're not trying. I'm not going to try. That might, I don't know. I think you're the same as me. Like if you see someone like you're like, what's, why are they like that? But I think you also understand like you have the empathy because I do. It's like okay, with the parents, society. I can understand why, but also it's difficult to understand because we're not in that situation.
Yeah, it's and because I have empathy, it's hard for me to see. And also because I see some of my stubborn aspects of myself in other people, like exaggerated in them, you know what I mean? So it's actually a good learning experience too, like for me personally. Oh, see, this person isn't taking action in this way, but I'm also kind of doing this in this other aspect of life, you know what I mean? I could kind of learn from that. What's stopping them, you know what I mean? And then how could I use that? But like one thing, a few things you mentioned, like I was actually raised by my grandmother on an off-grid farm in Ukraine, and she lived to be 87 years old. Literally, she just went to the doctors like once in her life to give birth to my mom, and that's it. And she lived in full health until older age, and she was taking care of the property herself, et cetera, uh, into old age, 87, you know, without any, I guarantee you, she had no personal train, no personal trainer, no life guru. She's just like absolutely like just mastered the basics just because of the situation in her life, in that environment. She just ate, like wild meat, pasture raised meat, was outside often. When the sun is down, you're already basically at home about to go to sleep, and it's like 7 p.m., for example, or 8 p.m. or stuff of that sort. Uh, you work in the morning for a little bit, and then you take like a long nap after, and then you just hang out, you know what I mean? You lounge around. You don't like work like 10 or 12-hour days behind a computer, et cetera, et cetera. And I find like one challenge of why people have a hard time changing these days is because even with a lot of like industry experts, I mean, they are actually genuinely smart people, but they're smart people that I find are stuck in the cesspool or the swamp of society, basically. You know what I mean? And they're figuring out like how do we not change this swamp, but how do we tinker with this and tinker with that to learn how to live better in this swamp? You know what I mean? Where I'm like under the mindset of like, why don't you just get out of the swamp? And then all these elaborate systems of how to stay healthy, have your gut on point, have your mental health on point while living in this swamp, they don't even have to be explored. Like just literally step outside the swamp and live outside that system. And then all of a sudden, just natural healing will occur just by default most of the time. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I feel they're stuck in it for two reasons. One, they've never lived outside of it themselves. Two, they are actually financially dependent on that swamp now. You know, um, the medical doctor that spent 8 years in medical school, 4 years in undergraduate, so 12 years total, is now financially dependent on people being sick to keep giving them their drugs. In my opinion, first and foremost, if a doctor isn't giving you like a 2 or 3 hour assessment upon first meeting you and thoroughly diagnosing you and all of the variables responsible for even the most minor of mental and physical challenges, I would personally run the other way. Also, if they're spending their entire session talking to you about symptoms and how to treat those symptoms with medical drugs, it's advertised as medicine, but remember, they're drugs at the end of the day, and all of them have side effects. I would also run the other way. No absolutes, and there's some emergency situations, of course, but that'll be the general rule. I don't know your take on it, because I see, like, for example, you or a lot of people from the Czech Institute, I see their healing was able to be possible because, once again, they just either unconsciously or by default, once again, stepped outside of the swamp, you know? I'm not saying it's impossible to be healthy in the swamp. I'm sure there's some people that are thriving even more than I am while existing in the cesspool of society, basically. But it's just so much easier when you just get out of it. All the answers become obvious. I don't know what your take is on that, because I see you kind of just stepped out of the swamp. You're not kind of tinkering on how could I work a corporate job for 12 hours a day with a boss I hate and coworkers I don't see eye to eye on, and be in front of a computer all day and rely on junk food and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, like you weren't in that mindset. You're like, okay, I'm just going to step out of that environment altogether and figure out how to be healthy here, you know?
Yeah, like before I started traveling, I was living in Toronto for 4 years, right downtown of like all the noise, all the pollution, hustle and bustle. I was doing like 10-hour days in the gym training clients. Literally my life was work. I'd get up at 4:30 a.m., come back at 8 p.m., rinse, repeat. And yeah, you're right. I was just trying to survive in the swamp of doing that versus like what I'm trying to do now is just experience many different forms of life, different cultures, see what I really need and want. And nature is definitely a part of that. So not being in the swamp, because you're spending a whole bunch of money to live in like a very small apartment. For for me, it was like no reason. I don't drink. I don't go out to nightclubs. What's the benefit here? Why am I here? Because people have money, and there's a lot of us here in this position. Eh, I'd rather live more in the woods, more in nature, some mountains. Living in Thailand was really nice, just having access to the beach every morning, and just a group of other people. Like I was on an island called Koh Phangan, where there's singing bowls every night. There are gatherings everywhere. People are very open to the emotional feeling side. I was able to train with other like really gifted athletes. Yeah, like feeling like right here, right now in my parents' place, I'm very isolated. I'm in the mountains. There's like nothing around me. But now I'm also missing the community side where I don't have like a network of other men and women that are really driving towards. It's just like me in my room and the mountains. So it's always taking the plus and the negative and equanimity. So with the meditation studies, it's people always see like you do a yoga session or a jiu-jitsu session or a meditation session. Like, wow, that was an amazing session. I love meditation or yoga, jiu-jitsu. Then you come back to it, and the next time it's like, I can't concentrate, I can't think, I'm really bad at it, now I hate it. And now I love it, now I hate it. And you're like bouncing between these two polarities of attachment and craving and aversion versus me the really bad with equanimity. I'm like, this is what it is. I'm just gonna feel and experience into it. If it's really good, I'm gonna just feel and experience into it. And I think that's a component that most people are missing in their life is that equanimity versus just. And the more I build it into me, the more I can see other adults' relationships to each other and how they interact. It's like they're like children. Why are you guys yelling at each other? You do it over and over in a certain pattern, and it just becomes more and more obvious. Like you lift, you go to the gym, you know how to do good form, and you watch someone do really bad form. Like, how are you not noticing you're doing really bad form? You're gonna hurt yourself. How are you noticing your communication skills and emotional control is not good? You're hurting yourself and others. I think that's kind of the curse that we have is that the more awareness you see it, the more you can't not see it. I
Mhm.
don't know if that's your experience, especially with friends and family. It's just even harder.
Yeah, um, especially with some friends, man, because oftentimes I remember when we were kids, we were running around laughing. Everyone was like super healthy. Um, but now it's like most people are just like really over. So first of all, they're still in their 30s, which is kind of the scarier part, but they're really overweight. Like they're stuck in these like 10, 12-hour job, 12-hour a day jobs, with hard deadlines too. It's not like just easy work where you could just kind of snooze out. And then they're just like very overweight, always like very busy. You can see they're very anxious, you know what I mean? They have a lot of like pent up tension. And it is tough to see because it's like these people you kind of grew up with and they're your friends, you know what I mean? And it's tough to see that. It's tough to see them living that way. And then on top of that, it's tough to see that it's been normalized. It's totally like under the radar that it's not even okay. You know what I mean? That that's like not normal at all. Like taking medical drugs isn't normal. That means there's something terribly wrong that you're doing in your belief system that's leading to that. And it's not like not even questioned, which kind of goes back way, way in the beginning. I feel like one of the things that's tough these days is for people to change is kind of what you mentioned at the beginning is just they've built a life that's not sustainable. And it's very hard to change course. You know what I mean? Especially once they get promoted to, director or whatever, you know what I mean? And they have like more bills and they get a more expensive house or whatever. It's just that whole foundation is unsustainable. It's built on like mental and physical pathology that's been normalized. And it's very hard for when you say like to some of your clients, you're like, dude, you just need to like quit your job. Maybe you need to phase out of it slowly. Like for you, you probably realized, like for me too, when I first started, I was training like 8 to 10 hours a day, 6 days a week, because I didn't know any better. I thought that was the adult thing to do. I was like stupid enough to even think that, you know what I mean? I'm like, well, this is how all my friends are working. This is like how adults live, you know what I mean? This is the adult thing to do. And I was just like so dumb and not even thinking for myself. And the first year or two, it's cool. You get more income. You know what I mean? You feel like more like adult like. You know what I mean? You're like, see, I can make my own way in the world. But then after that, it starts to wear on you. You know what I mean? Your sleep kind of sucks. You don't have enough time for your workouts, which sucks. You know what I mean? And then it has like a ripple effect. And then at the end of the day, I was like, dude, I'm just being like another fake health professional. I'm overworked, but I'm telling my clients not to work. I'm overly stressed, but I'm telling them not to take on any more work projects to reduce their stress. Um, I don't have time for workouts. Like I got to rush through because I'm booking too many clients, but I'm telling my clients to make more time for their, it just felt so fake. And I feel that's where a lot of health professionals are these days too. It's like next time you go to their doctors and they tell you to reduce your stress, it's like, look at their face, dude. They're like super stressed out 20. I'm like, when was the last time you actually implemented any of your advice and actually figured out a system to make it work? Which kind of goes back to my point of like most healthcare today, it's not about leaving the swamp. It's about tinkering and coexisting in the swamp without necessarily changing it. They kind of gave up on getting people to live a healthy lifestyle anymore. You know what I mean? Which could mean like shit, you got to work less hours because you're a fucking human being at the end of the day. You know what I mean? Like you're not meant to be like a machine to be plugged into a computer for like 12 hours a day or any kind of repetitive work for 12 hours a day, even personal training, for example. Um, I don't know. It's just kind of sad to see that, of course, especially when people are like a lot of people are genuinely looking for answers. You know what I mean? and they go to someone like an MD because they're like, well, he has so much school, he can't possibly be wrong. I mean, how could you be wrong after going to school for 12 years? Well, there's a reason 350,000 Americans are dying from medical malpractice every single year. Imagine if the US military lost those numbers in conflicts overseas, what an outcry that would be. I think in Vietnam, there's like 60,000 KIA in 10 years. We're losing 350,000 Americans every single year to medical malpractice. Totally under the radar. No one's talking about it at all. It's totally normalized, pathology normalized again.
Yeah, yeah. I think if they ran the news by statistics rather than emotional stories, people would actually be shocked. Like, a couple people died because of XYZ. Okay, who gives a fuck? Like, 10,000 people died of cardiovascular disease, something like that. Why are we talking about that? Why
Oh,
are we
it's
promoting
actually
real
like
health?
800,000 a year just in the US alone. That's
Yeah,
right.
exactly. It's just way more than, like, maybe you quote me on the stat. I'm not American, but I think like 70% of Americans are on at least one drug and 50% on two pharmaceuticals, something ridiculous like that. So it's exactly to your point that it's normalized, and they're not even. Yeah, the problem is the people in power aren't even aware. Like, we see people with lawyers' degrees, doctors' degrees, all these high-level degrees, and we see them as intelligent. And yes, on one aspect they are, but also they're just literally the people that stuck through the most amount of shit, studied and regurgitated the information coming from above. And now they're the ones dictating that same information down to the people below. And we have like all this respect for them because they did it. They have an MD or a doctor or some letters before their name, but they're like deeply indoctrinated into the system that doesn't work. And that's part of the problem is people aren't thinking for themselves. They're just believing in these authority figures that should know what they're doing. But because those authority figures are following other authority figures that
Yeah.
don't know what they're doing, setting policies, and it's like, what is going on? How is Cheerios more healthy than eggs? Something like that. Yeah.
Well, I always say sick people can't make healthy decisions, or they wouldn't be sick to begin with, and then just look at even a lot of leaders in our healthcare system in the US, for example, dude, like a lot of them are just very overweight. And the thing is, being overweight is like the easiest thing to cure of all, like of every health ailment. So if you can't even master that aspect, it's basically the equivalent of saying you can't do basic arithmetic. You know what I mean? Then what can you do? You know,
Yeah.
um, on top of that, it's kind of like, well, shit, I wanted to say something and now I totally spaced out, which happens at least once or twice during every one of these lives. Uh, but on top of that, dude, like just be real with yourself. Like if, in my opinion, and this is my opinion only, I'm talking to Rad here, like if all those medical drugs work, like go look in the mirror. Like, why do you still look like shit? Why do you still feel like shit? A lot of times all these medical drugs do is just basically, for the most part, allow the person to keep being the dummy they were that led them to that problem for a little bit longer. But all these drugs have side effects in a long enough time frame. And okay, like, so first of all, like let's say you had high blood pressure and you took high blood pressure medication. Okay, cool. And it suppresses your blood pressure to normal levels for a little while. Okay, cool. But how about like the mindset? The problem is the mindset that led to that high blood pressure will also lead to a myriad of other health ailments in a long enough time frame. Like, what's your strategy then? To take more drugs for all of those individual ailments, which will also give you side effects of various sorts, then take more drugs for those side effects. And then by the time you're like 50, you're basically like 80, it's like 60 pounds overweight, on like 10 or 15 different medical drugs. I have trouble freaking remembering to take magnesium once a day, And moreover, taking 15 different medical drugs every single day, that kind of requires an elaborate Excel sheet to be able to follow every single day. And you still feel like shit and you look like shit. And like you said, with marriages, I think the second or the first leading reason for divorce is loss of attraction to the partner, you know? And I think the first or second one is financial reasons. So financial reasons and loss of attraction to the partner. So, I mean, the cost is massive to be unhealthy, directly and indirectly. I mean, also the average American spends like not only $8,000 to $16,000 a year on non-essential expenses, that oftentimes lead to their obesity and misery and just in forms of coping and numbing out, such as fast food, alcohol, et cetera, et cetera. But they also spend around $3,000 to $5,000 a year on medical expenses related to being overweight. So it's like, dude, it's like easily $12,000 to $22,000 a year, if not more. Those are like small estimates. It could be like way more than that on just staying unhealthy. And that's the direct objective cost. Of course, there's a far more massive indirect cost, of being unhealthy, being overweight. I mean, it makes you less attractive overall, because why would a person want to date you? You know what I mean? If you're very sick all the time. I mean, it sounds mean, sure, but it's just true. It's just how the world works. It's like why, if you're already like very, very sick, if you're already unattractive, it kind of really limits your pull of who you're to date. You know what I mean? As well. And of course, there's more than just looks, etc. I'm moreover referencing to the health aspect of an individual. You can't be 100% present and happy if you're just unhealthy all the time. You know what I mean? Like, what are you going to accomplish if you have major depression all the time? Like, what are you going to accomplish if your low back is hurting all the time? You can't accomplish anything too much anyways, because your mental and physical health acts as kind of like basically a bottleneck to what you can do in life. Like there's an old saying, like a healthy person has 99 problems, but an unhealthy person only has one problem. That's their health, that they have to attend to. I forgot where I got that from, but it's a good one. It kind of really narrows your focus of attention. Like if you have gut issues, you're focused on that all day. It's hard to really be present and focus on other aspects, or focus on the date you're with, for example, or even feel sexy when you're super gassy, or you have a lot of pain in your small intestine or something of that sort. Um, stuff of that sort. So, but what's your strategy of, like, where are you headed now? How long are you going to be staying in Bulgaria for?
Um, Next couple weeks to couple months. I'm looking to head back to Canada for a few months and then head out to Bali. It's just been a long life. Like I put this traveling dream away for 5, 6 years to work. And it's like every time I went to like, all right, this is the time I'm gonna go leave. I got some crazy work opportunity, make more money, good clients. It's like, okay, I'll stay. Okay, I'll stay. I'll put aside my dream of travel. And living in it and seeing the challenges, like, is this really my dream? I don't know. I'm gonna have to really fully see it through in order to whatever you do in life, like as exciting as it seems, there's always gonna be challenges. And if you turn away when that challenge happens, then you're gonna question in the future, like, was I weak? Did I not do it enough? So it's kind of whether you stay somewhere, whether you move, like there's always that feeling. Uh, so yeah, I still see myself traveling a bit more, but having a different mentality to it. So for some reason, I saw myself as like, when I settle down and I get successful and have work, then I can't travel. But reality is you actually get way more excited about travel if it's like, no matter what, I'm booking this month off and I'm going to go to Germany or France. And then you really enjoy it because you look forward to it and that time is limited. When we have limited time, then we can really enjoy something versus if
Mm-hmm.
you have infinite time for it, then you're kind of just there floating. And I'm really like seeing that. If I literally like I have no plans to travel yet, I could just float here for an indefinite amount of time. If I have no plans for my health, for my finances, for my relationships, you just float because it seems like you'll never die. Seneca had a quote about life like it's not that we have a short life, but that we spend most of it in idle luxury, and we don't realize it's ending until it's ended. And it's one of the stoic practices I like is just contemplating death and just thinking like, okay, tomorrow I could die. Motivation built. Okay, let's go. Versus when we sit and idle, we watch in front of the TV, like, yeah, we're just gonna repeat this forever and it's gonna keep happening. But then one day, oh, I'm old and I can't do it, and I wasted all my time idling. Like that shit scares me. I don't want to grow up and be in that mindset. Like I didn't do it when I was younger, and what a waste. I think that's a shocking regret people would have. Yeah. Saying it out loud right now, I'm like, fuck, don't let that happen.
Yeah, and I feel with we have a lot of time. Actually, nobody has a lot of time. So like the average American dies at 75. So if you're like 40 years old, your life is basically a bit more than half over already, you know? If you're like 50, it's like, I don't know, 65% over. If you're 60, it's like whatever, 70% over. I don't know the exact stats. If you're 70, it's already like 90% over.
And like the
I've
good
had sometimes,
part's gone.
yeah, I've had sometimes people come into me and during consultation calls and they're like 70, one, 70 years old, dude. And they're like on 100 medical drugs at this point, like super overweight. And they're like, it's not, um, I gotta take care of my health next year. It's not a good time right now. I'm like, dude, you're fucking 70, man. Like, there might not be a next year for you, This like how delusional some people are, in terms of how much time they have left and stuff of that sort. So I feel like there really isn't that much time. Are you working like 100% remote now, or are you still kind of doing in person but traveling for extended periods of time and going back?
Yeah, so when I left, I basically stopped taking clients because I was like, there's no way I can do time changes, commitments, no Wi-Fi, that kind of stuff. So yeah, all my stuff is online. I just finished like a 7-week online healing group. So we'd meet, I gave them material, we're studying Chinese medicine and how to like heal yourself with it through emotions, through physical movements. And it was just like a really great experience having a group of people come together. We do the practices and just getting the feedback. So that's what I'm moving towards next in April 1st, April Fools, starting another cohort, really mobilizing people into action. I love teaching, but I hate holding people's hands. Honestly, like I did that for so many years as a trainer, like being a band-aid. I don't want to be no fucking band-aid. Here's the information as systematically and as cleanly laid out as I can give it to you. You need to learn it and apply it for yourself and not have some adult figure treat you like a child whenever
Hmm.
you go off the plan or you don't show up for a workout. Like I'm not about that anymore. I want to educate, I want to teach people that honestly want to learn and do the work for themselves and and more so be the spark versus like just throwing all my fuel onto someone else's fire.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for tuning into the podcast. I'm curious, have you ever been confused by the labels in the grocery store? In Yevgeny's book, he demystifies the difference between caged, cage-free, free-range, and pasture-raised meats. He also covers how to avoid GMOs, source high-quality water, fish, supplements, and other related topics. It's a beautifully illustrated, non-technical read that comes with a comprehensive video series and other extended learning materials. Jump on Amazon and check out the book titled Anti-Factory Farm Shopping Guide by Eugene Trufkin. Now let's dive back into the podcast.
Yeah, and I find for the most part a lot of in-person coaching is kind of like just babysitting for adults, and it's always like, I don't know, it just kind of rattles my mind. I don't think people know a lot about the coaching industry if they really think they need like an in-person coach 3 times a week to hold them accountable. Because it's like, dude, you have a biological system that's high maintenance. Okay, after this 30-day challenge is done or 90-day challenge is done, like what then? Are you just living for 90 days? No, you need to create sustainable systems that you're going to be able to do yourself with appropriate knowledge after the program is done for the rest of your life, basically. And it's like, what's your strategy then? Paying a coach like 120 bucks a session just to count your reps and like basically be a rent-a-friend in between sets where you kind of chat about life. Okay, if you want to rent a friend, I get it, If that's what you want and that's what you want to pay money for, then do it. But oftentimes that's really all people are getting with in-person coaching. And as you know, also, uh, anyone can be an in-person coach. You don't need a certification of any sort, at least in the US. You could just say you're an in-person coach, and that's really it. And then you just need like fitness insurance, which is like 150 bucks a year. And you're pretty much set to go. Oh, and a CPR card, which is like 2-hour online certification program. And that's it. That's it. And even a lot of these certification programs that coaches get, just type in the name of the certification in Google and you'll see you can get the same certification in like a day or two online. It's not even an in-person test. Like you can have someone take it for you online, so it's like not even like a reputable industry to go get coaching from. But most of the time, but there are a lot of also great in-person coaches. But typically what I found with great in-person coaches to do is they assess you in person, and it usually takes a few hours. And then they maybe do like a short onboarding thing with you. But then, like you said, they just give you the knowledge, and then here, like, just do it. Can you kind of go over more about like your program and what you have in it and how it works and stuff of that sort?
Yeah, so the first week, like I do a prep week where I express mindset, how to succeed with the program, and then we go over an assessment. I use key performance indicators. So I use the four doctors, the six health principles, and then some Chinese medicine stuff, yin and yang, qi and blood, to basically assess the system. So we have a score baseline of general overall health. And then as each week progresses, we focus on a different organ system. So like week 1 or 2, it's livers and gallbladder. Next week, it's like digestive system. Next week, it's respiratory, heart. And I break it down through a Chinese medicine perspective, but I also add Western kinesiology, because I have a kinesiology degree with my Chinese medicine degree. So I think my skill is really just like taking the esoteric energy, emotions. What does it mean? I don't know. And like make it as A, B, C as possible. Because people are trying to make words, sentences, write books, but they don't even know the alphabet yet. So like, what's the alphabet of the human? When you feel this emotion, what does it mean? What organ systems is it stimulating? How do you stretch? How do you move to allow that to flow? But then also coming to it, like I'm sure with Michael Holt, you talked about contemplative meditation, so concentration, equanimity, sense clarity. I talk about that in the meditation practice. And yeah, it's just structured that like week by week, I give the pieces, the tools, and then in the final, we kind of put it all together to allow people to continue working through it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a lot of material. It's like 100 pre-recorded videos and then the lives as well. So it's a passion joy project for me to basically like week by week, people would just be messaging me on Instagram like, hey, I had IBS for 10 years. It's gone. Like this one simple thing, have some apple cider vinegar, do some Qigong meditation. Boom, like so many symptoms starting to go away that people that sign up for this, they're already on some sort of journey. Like they're not beginners. So they have body awareness and an understanding, but a lot of people in the energy space tend to be very floaty, like they're out of body. So I have to help them anchor themselves in their body for whatever reason. Like maybe there's some trauma that their spirit just doesn't want to sit in their body. They don't want to acknowledge their body pains, what's going on. So they get blasted out. So a lot of my practices is just coming into the body, being able to listen to it. What does this signal mean? Like you said, with depression, anxiety, all this stuff, it's a gift. Imagine on the physical plane, if I have a hot stove and I put my hand on it, thank God I have pain receptors to say, move your hand, because you're going to burn it. On an emotional, mental, spiritual, we have those same receptors, but instead of a physical burn, it's anxiety, it's depression, it's weight gain. That's the signal.
Mm-hmm.
And if we didn't have that signal, we keep the hand on the stove, and it's going to keep damaging us, but we're not even aware that our hand is on the stove.
Well, people are still keeping their hand on the stove, Radoslav.
Well, that's my job.
From our
like
conversation.
That their hand is on the stove.
Yeah. Because it's totally normal just to keep your hand there frying, it's already like sizzling. It's already super well done and stored. It's scorched,
Yeah,
man. But
they're taking the
they're like, no,
medication.
I just need more anti-anxiety meds. I just need to up my dose. Then everything will be fine, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's like the rock in the shoe. They're just taking painkillers to mask how much pain is actually happening here instead of, oh, you're saying thinking, moving, breathing, nutrition, hydration, sleep. That's what I need to look at, not which specific medicine for this thyroid issue.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it kind of, I feel in that sense, society has been brainwashed a bit. There's a really good book, one of my favorites of all time, called The Crowd by Gustavo Le Bon. It's written it's written in the 1800s. It's very old, but dude, this guy was like hundreds of years ahead of his time. And he talked about how, the mass mind kind of forms. It's like a different type of consciousness versus like people individually. Like notice people act differently in groups versus they act individually. It's kind of like a new consciousness is formed when they're when they're set up in groups, and the bigger the group, the more of that consciousness forms and transforms. But shit, I spaced out again. I did it again. Yeah,
People
the crowd.
following.
I just forgot what I was getting at, but I wanted to reinforce exactly what you're saying. Um, I forgot, but maybe you can build off of it, Rod. Yeah, I didn't drink enough water this morning. That's why I'm kind of spacing.
Like, well, I'll just cut back into it. Like, it's always fundamental. If there's something going on in my life, like, am I thinking right? Am I breathing right? Am I moving right? Nutrition, hydration, sleep. So I always talk to like my clients and people online. Like, that's what you need to look at. Is it too much exercise? Not enough exercise. Too much water? Not enough water. We have generalities like, yeah, probably you should be drinking more water and probably should exercise more. But it's always engagement of where you're actually at. Someone running a marathon every day, okay, you could probably chill and do a little less, do some more bodybuilding, do some more stretching, more yoga. It just, it's kind of sad that it's just medication versus, yo, your hand is on a stove. You have a partner that doesn't love you. You have a job you don't like. You're eating food that doesn't serve you. You're not hydrated. Just hydrate yourself and like just start there. Paul always talks about, Paul Chuck, he's like, if your clients are redlining on everything, you have to give them like one or two things to change. They can't handle more change. So people oftentimes, they don't set their purpose as to why I'm going to change, why I'm going to lose weight or get a better relationship or make more money. And it's kind of like a fleeting thought of, oh, I saw this really sexy girl, this really sexy guy. I want to look good like that. I'm just going to not eat right now and work out really hard. But there's no intention behind it. Like, why? Why? Something really powerful for me is when I did HLC level 1, like I've always tried to just build muscle and like get it, but it's been really hard for me. And in HLC 1, the lady was like, why are you building muscle? Who are you doing it for? And it was just like struck me like, oh shit, I'm doing it because people tell me to put on size because I'm too small all the time. And it's like not coming from me, it's coming from pain, hurt, from someone else, from me trying to gain acceptance and approval from society. And it's like, that really struck me. And it kind of reinforced me wanting to go into that business because, yeah, a lot of people I think are living in that mindset of I need to make money so that people will love me. I need to have a certain body so people will love me. Well, I don't have any money, I don't have the body, and no one loves me. So I'm screwed anyways. It's kind of like a double-edged sword.
Yeah. Oh, so to reinforce, I actually remembered, luckily the thought has come back into my mind. To reinforce your thought, I think it's just people have been brainwashed to believe like health needs to be complex. And almost when you're telling people like, dude, you just need to drink more water, like you need to not have a job you hate, you need to not have a job, like a life you hate. You need to eat like actual real food, like bare minimum, at least like USDA organic certified, which isn't the greatest, but it's a good step in the right direction. And you need to use movement as medicine. They're like, well, it can't be that simple. Why would this doctor need to go to school for 12 years if it was that simple? And that's a good question. Like, why would they need to go to school for 12 years if it was that simple? Once again, in my opinion, if a doctor is spending their entire 2.5 second assessment with you just talking about symptoms and how to treat those symptoms with medical drugs which have side effects, I would personally run the other way and find an actual real healthcare practitioner that is getting to the root cause and teaching you how to live like a human being again, which will resolve like 99% of the issues people are facing these days anyways, Not every issue, there's no absolutes, of course, but the bulk majority of them would freaking disappear if they just didn't hate their life and realized their humanness and lived close to that humanness, Like if you have like a V4 car, stop driving it like a V8 off-road when you have like a car that doesn't even go off-road, for example, I mean, it's honestly so common sense, but not common sense in the sense that it goes back to pathology being normalized in our culture today, and people thinking like it's okay to be like overweight on a shitload of medical drugs and feeling like shit is feeling okay, that's just, it's my genetics, you know what I mean? It's not the fact that I'm working 12 hours a day in a job I hate and eating fast food and 30 pounds overweight. Nope. That has absolutely nothing to do with it. It's 100% my genetics and stuff of that sort. I always say, like, maybe genetics loads the gun for sure, but your decisions pull the trigger, stuff of that sort. And how do you, regarding what you said also, have you ever studied like Stefan Wolinski's work in quantum psychology?
I wanted to ask because I saw you post some stories about him like over the years, and I have the audiobook Waking from the Trance.
Yes, that one is like pretty much a Bible. I even listen to it every single workout.
Okay. Yeah, it's like I wanted to get your opinion actually on it because I didn't study it enough in depth. I've listened to it a couple of times, but it's when I first thought of the concept, I was like, okay, it's cool, and then he breaks it down. It's like, oh, it's actually like different levels of awareness and perception. That I, I'm gonna butcher it. You tell me because
No, it's okay. I've been studying his work for like 4 years, but only super seriously taken it very seriously in the last year or so. I actually started a book club for it with a couple of other Czech guys. So you're welcome to always join. Um, you
yeah.
could always just send messages back and forth if you have any questions on it. We do a once a week call together as well, just to kind of throw ideas back and forth. But in short, it kind of, I tie it into Czech's work that we learned from 1, 2, 3, 4, overcoming obesity, addiction, disease. I remember that was a correspondence course that was required for HLC3. That's probably like literally one of my favorite correspondence courses he had by far. And that one is great because it sets up like a really cool etiology tree. You already know this. I'm more over talking to the people in the chat because Radoslav, I like that name a lot. It's very medieval sounding. Um, we took HLC3 and it was a correspondence course, but you don't have to even be signed up for that course. If you guys want, you could just take that correspondence course independently and it'll be a life changer for sure. But basically it sets up like regarding an easy one to understand, but this could apply to any health challenges like you have fat gain, right? So, okay, fat, it's like excess fat. It's like a symptom of poor lifestyle and nutritional choices, And then you go, okay, so what is a symptom of poor lifestyle and nutritional choice? A belief system that doesn't facilitate health conscious choices, obviously. But why would a person want to self-abuse themselves that way? So it kind of breaks down into 3 different categories. You got a love-hate relationship. I won't dive into too much detail here because I've done it before on other lives a lot. You have a story gap. You want to be an artist, but you're a lawyer, for example. And you have a feeling of emptiness, spaciousness, rather, to be more accurate, that you perceive as emptiness. And then also like a 4th one that I included is you're just in a society that has normalized pathology and they kind of reinforce those pathological mindsets and beliefs. And all that is a result of like obviously a disconnect of core values, either just not being clear or knowledgeable of your core values at all, or if you are clear, just a huge disconnect. Like you want to be working remote, but you're working in person. There's a disconnect in core values. You want to be working 3 hours a day, but you're working 12 hours a day. There's a disconnect in core values. Just to list a few examples, but there are a myriad of examples. You want to look a certain way, but you look not that way. There's a disconnect in core values. And then you got to go then it goes into like Wolinski's work, which he actually, Czech, I believe, touched on in that video series in pieces and parts here and there. And Wolinski's work is great because it goes back to what I loved about psychology in the beginning. Like I got my degree from the cognitive science department at UCI in psychology. And initially, like psychology started as just finding out who you were. That's its original invention as a philosophy, and it had literally nothing to do about anything else except finding out who you were and then living true to that person. It wasn't about making more money, reducing your anxiety so you can work more hours, have better love life, or whatever. Psychology today, I refer to it as industrial psychology, not like industrial organizational psychology, just like straight up industrial psychology, because it's all about just getting you to survive in the industrial world. Like I mentioned, living in the swamp and tinkering around there. You know what I mean? It has literally nothing to do with finding out who you are. In fact, its only purpose is really just to exaggerate your false self. And it kind of diving into Wolinski's work in short, which I'd love for you to be a part of the group because I think you'll just love the material altogether, He mentions like basically between the ages of like this is such a summarized version, but I don't want to take over this podcast because I want to know what you're up to. But basically, he mentions like, oh, you know, between the ages of 5 or 12 months, before that, the child saw themselves as part of essence or the universe and didn't even see themselves as a separate being. Then when they form a conscious awareness that's separate from the mother, this kind of causes the central nervous system a lot of distress, and the central nervous system's only purpose is to get you to survive in the world. So it creates, uh, on top of a couple of other things in terms of organizing chaos of the universe, so you'd be able to actually comprehend what's going on in the external world and navigate around it. Its other tool was to create a personality, which it does for you. And it does this based on like false premises of like a false core, for example, as Walensky would refer to it as. And there are 9 different false cores for the most part. And one of them would be like, I am worthless. And it does this for you. And then obviously that's a painful feeling to feel. If you truly feel that, it labels this emptiness as worthlessness. And you base your whole entire personality off then proving that you are worthy, that you're not worthless. You know what I mean? And that's your false self. Because the problem is your false core, it's like a false hypothesis. It's a false conclusion. And you obviously can't come up with the right answer from a false conclusion. You'll just keep getting the wrong answer. And unfortunately, a lot of these motivational coaches are like, you need to work harder and you need to enhance your false self more. It just takes people further and further away from who they really are. Although it might help you in your external world, like get a job, make more money, have more a love life or whatever, get the Bugatti. But the problem is a lot of times, and you see this often, is they get those things and then they feel more empty than ever. You know what I mean? Whatever they're trying, it could be in academia as well. It doesn't have to be in finances. And this is a common path because all they're doing is just reinforcing their false self, which sets up a distortion of core values, which gets people into the wrong relationships, wrong occupations, sense of emptiness, which those are so tough to deal with because they encompass your life, that they lead to maladaptive behavior, which lead to poor lifestyle and nutritional choices, which lead to fat gain. In our etiology tree here, in terms of how it relates to fat gain, but it could be anything: depression, anxiety, psychologically induced chronic insomnia, sexual dysfunction, even gut issues, because oftentimes people get into jobs, ironically, that they don't like for the biological safety of that job, but because it causes them a lot of misery in a long enough time frame, it actually kills their biology too. You know, so it kind of comes in full circle. And then they're like 50 years old and they're a director and they're very sick and they're very miserable, but which is ironic because the whole entire purpose was to save their biology and take the safer route to begin with. But in a sense, their biology was eroded by that mental distress that they put themselves under in terms of having the disconnect in core values. In short, there's a lot more to that. I just hate kind of taking over these podcasts, but that's in short how it flows into that. And I found it like a perfect fit with Czech's 1, 2, 3, 4 overcoming obesity, addiction, and disease.
Well, something to add to that, we talk about distortions. Let's say this is from Shinzen Young from the Science of Enlightenment. He talks about pain and suffering. And if I give you the task of trying to thread a needle, some thread through a needle, like you struggle, it's hard, it's challenging, but maybe you get it through. If I hold a blowtorch to you, and now you have to, while you're getting blowtorched, thread the needle, this objective task becomes very difficult. So that physical blowtorch can be emotional pain, struggle, disconnect from, I want to be an artist, but I'm working in Wall Street. All these things causing more suffering and pain than they need to, which makes everything in life, just getting out of bed, having coffee, having a bowel movement, like all these little minutial tasks become mountains because now you're getting the blowtorch of anger, of fear, of stress, constantly disrupting you doing basic, simple tasks. And again, it comes down to like when we lose our health, whether it's getting sick, having an injury, like that's a physical distortion now that, oh man, getting to work is really hard if my ankle's broken, but I have to do it, but I'm struggling. So it's like people are just adding those crutches all the time with these emotional baggages. And Michael Holt talks about it like having a sack of shit on your back. and you keep adding more shit and it's weighing you down. Now you have to like do all your tasks with it. Versus it sucks to put your hand in that bag and physically pull out the crap because you're experiencing it, smells, it feels bad on your hand, but it's lightening the load. So when your body is wanting to express these physical emotions to come out, most of the time we suppress it because that's our training. And that's just like, okay, adding more shit to the bag instead of releasing it. And Rudolf Steiner, I'm assuming you're aware. Yeah. He has a really good book called How to Know Higher Worlds. And he talks about the soul and building the organs, the spiritual organs. And he says that emotions are the fuel of the fruit of the soul. So when you have really good emotions, really bad emotions, let's say, like that fuels your soul. When you numb, when you choose not to experience those things, it takes away from your soul. So the more sense clarity, equanimity, concentration we can have towards our feelings in the moment, it can cause more pain. Like if I'm arguing with my whoever, let's say wife, parents, boss, and I'm just like, oh, then I go home and I have some ice cream and I watch Netflix and I don't fully feel into that emotion. Now it gets stuck in my body. And through a Chinese medicine lens, emotions are the cause of internal disease or chronic disease. So all this stuck energy, whether it's going to your stomach, your liver, your heart, over time, that's what manifests a real disease. So if you're not dealing with the emotional side, you're not getting to the root of most problems. And most people, if they had better emotional control, they're going to make better decisions. Well, I'm not going to react impulsively and put this cheesecake in my mouth. I'm not going to react impulsively and yell at this person. So once you get that basic skill of emotional control, being able to watch it with some awareness in your body, kind of like if we're speaking two different languages, you have no idea what's going on, I have no idea what's going on, we're confused. That's what people's body basically, they're speaking a language, the body's speaking a language that person doesn't understand, and then there's just a disconnect. And yeah, like a child raging, crying, hey, you don't need to cry or rage over this situation, but they are. And then they grow up as they're adults, and we see these adults, but they're just kids. Like so many of us are just kids in adult bodies. And I used to have this problem. I used to think adults knew everything. So I have this belief I have to fight over all the time, where it's like, I need to tell this person that they don't know. They don't know. So I just have to say it. Versus part of the Taoist philosophy and Rudolf Steiner from How to Know Higher Worlds is you don't tell people how to live their life. Like you never should impose in any way, which is kind of hard for lifestyle coaches, right? So I got to tell you what to do, but I don't want to tell you what to do.
Well, I find like to reinforce your idea, I find like it's really challenging for a lot of people to get in touch or even be consciously aware of what their body is telling them, simply because they're in such a myopic state these days. Referencing back to America here, you know, like the average American has about $1,000 in their bank account, which already puts like a decent amount of financial stress on you. You know what I mean? Because you're like basically one car mishap away from having no money, you know, or not even have enough money for that repair, for example. And then, you know, they're on shitty diets, overworked. They have just enough energy, you know, to get back home, to eat one more meal, to go to sleep, to go to work again, and repeat that cycle. And it's really tough for them to slow down because once again, they're living in that swamp that I mentioned. You know what I mean? And I feel like, I mean, looking back honestly with you, do you feel you would have been able to do any of the exploration at the rate you're doing now if you're still coaching 10 hours a day, you know, for example?
Yeah, no chance. Like that's the thing I noticed is, and Paul says it too. If you improve yourself, your clients will improve as a byproduct of it. So, and you said it too, like if I'm spending 10 hours a day just training people and I'm not working out, I'm not eating well, I'm not sleeping, I don't feel good taking $100 from someone for the session. I'm not doing my part of living up to what I need to be doing. And then I know like, okay, when I am on point, everything's feeling good. My clients are getting better results just because I'm showing up to myself. And then I feel good about what I'm charging. So it's like having all those aspects come together is important. Yeah. You can't just live in the swamp. as you would say.
Well, one of the strategies I always encourage people to do if they can do it, and a lot of jobs can these days, is to at least initially work remote. So you can start distancing yourself from like the pathology and social politics of work, because everyone there, unfortunately, is just most likely misguided to why they're even there. You know what I mean? They really don't even belong there. They're kind of, like I mentioned, 9 out of 10 American adults are metabolically unhealthy. So they're just very sick. And then you're absorbing that energy 24/7 from being around these type of people. So just distancing yourself from that by working remote is a good first step. Have you noticed any health benefits to you personally by now working remote versus like in person? Distinct benefits?
Yeah, so the gym I used to work at was like there was only one window in one corner. So all day, like it'd be 8 p.m. at night and it's just like bright lights. You have no idea what's going on outside. So from that aspect, it was challenging. But then yeah, there were some coworkers and like bosses where as soon as they walked in the room, like I never had anxiety, but like I developed anxiety being around these people. It's like a horrible situation. Like all day I'm spending like I hope he doesn't come in. I hope he doesn't come in. So like yeah, to live in that swamp all the time. Like there's some great people, there's clients were really great, but to not have access to fresh air or light for 12 hours, just yeah, it's not a fun environment that's conducive to you wanting to go read a book, to go learn, to go improve yourself. It's just draining all day, and then the energy's gone. How do I do the rest? Yeah.
Yeah, and I find also it kind of really takes over your whole life because you're thinking about that on the way to work. Then obviously you're dealing
Oh,
with it at
dude,
work. Then you're
when
thinking
I
about it
first
on the way
started,
back from homework. It's just like an all day activity. And I think especially it's hard for like I hate to call us like holistic healthcare practitioners. I don't know the exact like name that would suit us, but it's hard for us to be like working in a gym environment because gyms are so like mechanical in the sense that like let's just get you working out, sweating, let's chat in between sessions, let's get you on some shitty supplements and some Herbalife or whatever the fuck's being promoted these days, and let's kind of send you on your way. It's just hard to see that kind of service too, and then it's hard to express your genuine self when you're just around that culture, especially like a lot of the fitness culture. um I mean, especially in the social media realm, just like a lot of drugs involved in that kind of environment, like steroid abuse. Pretty much like 99% of social media influencers in the fitness culture are like either openly promoting performance enhancing drugs, like not even just conservatively using it as like a testosterone replacement therapy type of situation, but just like straight up abusing the drugs. And unfortunately, they their influencer base is like very influential 18 to 25-year olds or even younger. And then they do the same exact thing. And it's just kind of painful to be around that kind of culture and that kind of message because it's alluring because oftentimes they do have nice physiques, but it's built off like a chemical, very synthetic foundation and not like, once again, a sustainable foundation or a foundation that's like mentally healthy because it's oftentimes driven by like lack, or unworthiness or stuff of that sort. And just that false scores just really been exaggerated. Then some people even come into our space trying to preach like more natural living, but then you find out they're using like $15,000 of steroids every month
like
to really,
Mr. Liver King.
yeah, exactly. So, I mean, it's just rampant with scam artists, that literally have zero ethics whatsoever to their practice. And what's your take on that? Because it's painful to see that as well.
Liver King specifically, or just like
Just general. It doesn't have to be him specifically. That's just a common theme.
yeah, people selling their souls for some supplements, and I watch the YouTube videos where like they expose people and they talk about it, and it's like I don't like money. You need it, but there's enough. Like I think that's a question people don't ask themselves. Like how much is enough? 5,000 a month, 10,000, a million in the bank? I don't see. I don't understand the selling of the soul to make as much money as possible right now in this moment. Doesn't make sense to me. For me, it's just give as much value as I can to a person. If I get money from it, cool. If I don't, cool, I'm putting good into the world, and chances are they're going to help someone else with that information, I'm okay with it. Versus, especially those pre-workout powders, or yeah, I wanna believe, and then I like read the ingredients. Why is, especially if it's someone that I really trust and like, and it's like, this, natural flavors, artificial flavors,
Hmm.
sugars, a bunch of dyes, things I can't even understand. Yeah, it boggles the mind sometimes why someone would, but yeah, I don't know. It's greed. Who knows?
Yeah. Well, let's see. We covered so much. Is there anything else you would like to cover that's on your mind or you're looking to pursue?
I'm I'm getting some retreats ready for this year, Bulgaria, BC. So that I'm really excited about, to work with people like in person again, in a closed setting where we can just deep dive on work. Um, I'm really excited about that. I think human connection for me has been really difficult because I grew up very disconnected, playing video games like 10 hours a day, just completely disconnected. So when I get in those communities and the vibe and feeling other people, I think that's important. I think there was a TED talk about people who live really long. The community was like number one. If you don't have people and you just feel lonely all the time, that's a killer. Like feeling disconnected, feeling lonely. So if anyone's out there listening to this and they're feeling disconnected, feeling lonely, try connecting to God, source, spirit, consciousness, a plant, a dog, a cat. Go to your local YMCA, meet some people. It'll brighten your day up, I think.
Cool. Well, do you have like any information on how people could kind of sign up for these retreats or if you already have scheduled dates?
Yeah, I think the Bulgarian one will be in May, but nothing's set yet. You can find me on Radoslav, Radoslav, Instagram, TikTok. Instagram's the best place to reach me. I post pretty much everything I need there. I have a free guide on acupoints, top 5 acupoints guide. I have a book on weight loss, like holistic lens weight loss. Um, but yeah, if you follow me, it's because you want to learn how to heal yourself, right? You want to learn to be independent, and that's my message. Is your body can heal itself. You can. It's not that complicated. Just like you said, it's not rocket science. Not 12 years of education science. It's a couple basic things repeated for a long enough period. You're gonna get better.
Okay, I have a thing against that saying it's not rocket science. I actually think mental and physical health is far more complicated than rocket science. I
Okay.
mean, we don't even like scientists don't even know how human consciousness is formed, for example, you know? So I don't know, just say. It's
I
not
thought
the
you
hu
said
it's not
before.
the it's not the human body, it's not the human body and mental health difficult. This
Okay.
kind of sounds stupid as not rocket science, but anyways, I'm trying to be funny. You know what I'm saying.
Yeah, I got you.
And you guys, I'll include all of Rad's links in the description section. So if you want to make it easy to contact him and reach out to him and stuff of that sort. And if you're looking for like what real and honest health journey looks like, it's not for everyone. If you want to keep, doing what you're doing that led you to all your problems, you just keep numbing yourself out with a shitload of drugs, go for it, if it's working for you. But if it's not and you're looking for an honest approach, like reach out to him, check out his stuff. And like I always say, don't ever let the world put your mental and physical health second. Because the second you do that, misery will always follow close behind. Okay? And wishing you guys the best. And Rad, thank you. It's great to see you. And yeah, hopefully we can connect and do these again sometime in the future, man.
For sure, man. I gotta check out that book club too.
Okay. Don't quite leave because I don't know how to close out this live. So I might need you to walk me through it. Do you know how to do it?
There's an X button on the top right of the screen.
Okay. And if
You
I
just
press
hit
that,
that.
it wouldn't erase this footage or anything?
No. So once you do that, you'll see a menu that's like save the live.
Okay.
You want to make sure you click save the live.
Okay. Okay. All right, guys. Thank you for everyone jumped in. Rad, it's great to see you from Bulgaria. Um, do you hear any news on the Ukraine thing there? Is that like a big deal on the news station there? Because I know it's like right across the border, basically.
Yeah, I'm sure there's stuff, but I watch like zero
Okay,
news.
thank
So,
God. Cool.
yeah. I'm so out of the loop.
Okay, guys. Well, thank you, Rad. Great to see you. Thank you for everyone that jumped in. Have a good one, everyone.
Thanks, Eugene.
Thanks for tuning into the podcast. If you've ever had trouble losing weight, or you've lost weight, but still didn't have the ideal body or health you're aiming for, please feel free to reach out anytime and book an assessment. Eugene will work with you to cover your goals in detail, see what's holding you back, and go from there. In the meantime, feel free to check out the countless testimonials on Eugene's website in the link below. In the testimonial section, you'll notice everyone has various backgrounds, are of all different ages, and all have had different challenges in their life, but they all have one thing in common: they were all able to find their health and achieve their ideal body. You're also welcome to add yourself to the Facebook group in the link below. There you'll have access to the live videos that Eugene does weekly on Sundays, and other helpful content. Thank you again for tuning in.